Changes in Canada's international work permit system to reduce immigration. A detailed overview. Hey, so if you've been keeping up with the latest news about Canada, you might have heard some buzz about recent changes to its international work permit system. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal, and it's definitely something worth talking about, especially if you're someone who's interested in immigration, work opportunities abroad, or even just how countries are managing labor markets in the post-pandemic world. Okay, let's dive into this. Background: Canada's open immigration system. So, for years, Canada has been one of the most immigrant-friendly countries in the world, with policies that encourage people from all over the globe to come work and settle. Especially in recent years, Canada has seen an influx of international workers across various sectors, ranging from technology and healthcare to agriculture and construction. The government even introduced a point-based system that helped select skilled immigrants based on their qualifications, language skills, work experience, and other factors that would make them successful in Canada's labor market. But here's the thing: Canada's openness has been facing some challenges. As much as the country benefits from the contributions of skilled workers, there's been increasing pressure on local job markets, housing, and infrastructure. So, yeah, it's kind of been a balancing act. How do you keep encouraging immigration without overwhelming the system? Well, it looks like the Canadian government has decided it's time to make some adjustments to how international workers are brought into the country. Why is Canada changing its work permit system? Okay, so why exactly is Canada making these changes to its international work permit system? Right? The primary goal here seems to be about controlling immigration numbers, especially when it comes to temporary foreign workers. Basically, the Canadian government has decided that, in order to prevent the labor market from becoming too reliant on foreign workers, it needs to tighten up the rules surrounding work permits. But let me tell you, there's a little more to it than just reducing immigration. In fact, the Canadian government's aim is more focused on reducing the number of temporary foreign workers coming into the country to work in certain sectors, where Canadians could fill the gaps instead. So, the idea is to focus more on encouraging local talent to step up and take those jobs, rather than relying on foreign workers to fill every position. I see. Yeah, that makes sense if you think about it. It's about striking a balance between providing opportunities for local workers while still benefiting from the skills and expertise of people from abroad. Key changes in the system. Now, let's talk about the specifics of these changes. Okay, one of the main things the government is doing is introducing stricter eligibility criteria for work permits. In simpler terms, if you're an international worker trying to get a job in Canada, it's going to be a bit harder. For example, employers will now have to prove that they've made a serious effort to hire Canadian workers before they can hire someone from abroad. This means they'll have to show that there's a genuine need for foreign talent in the position they want to fill. In other words, they can't just go out and hire workers from other countries if they have qualified Canadians available. Right. So this change is a way to ensure that local job seekers aren't overlooked in favor of hiring workers from abroad. It's a bit like putting Canadian workers first, before anyone else. But, of course, there's more to it. Employers in sectors like agriculture, hospitality, and construction, which traditionally rely on foreign workers, are going to face more challenges in getting their permits approved. They'll have to jump through more hoops, and that could slow down the process of filling those roles. The impact on international workers. So, okay, how does this affect international workers who are hoping to get a permit to work in Canada? Well, the process for obtaining a work permit is definitely going to get more competitive. Right now, the government is prioritizing Canadian citizens and permanent residents when it comes to job opportunities. That's not to say that international workers won't still be able to find jobs in Canada, but the bar for entry has been raised. Employers will have to jump through more bureaucratic hoops to bring in foreign talent, which could mean longer waiting times for approval and a bit more red tape to deal with. For some international workers, this might not be an issue if they're coming to fill specialized roles that are in high demand. However, for others, like those in low-skilled or temporary positions, it could be harder to secure a work permit. The tightening of these regulations could make it especially difficult for workers in industries like agriculture or hospitality, where there is often a high demand for seasonal workers. I see, yeah, those industries might be hit the hardest. Economic implications. Local versus international workers, right? So now that we understand the basics of the changes, let's take a step back and look at the economic implications of this shift. The whole point of these new regulations is to reduce Canada's reliance on foreign workers. But the big question is, will this work? Okay, let's break it down. On one hand, Canada's economy has traditionally relied on immigration to fill gaps in the workforce, especially in sectors where there aren't enough skilled workers locally. With these changes, there's a risk that certain industries might face labor shortages as they try to fill positions with local talent. For example, industries like agriculture, where seasonal labor is crucial, might struggle to find enough Canadian workers willing to take those temporary jobs. That could lead to slower growth or even production delays in those sectors. On the other hand, by encouraging employers to hire Canadian workers, the government is trying to ensure that the labor market remains strong for locals. The thinking here is that by reducing the number of temporary foreign workers, employers will be forced to look for talent closer to home, which in turn will help Canadian workers get more opportunities. The effect on employers. Another aspect to consider is how these changes are going to affect employers. Right? Employers who are used to relying on foreign workers might face challenges. Many industries depend heavily on the ability to hire temporary foreign workers, and now they'll have to demonstrate that they've made a serious effort to recruit locally before they can hire someone from abroad. This means more time spent on recruitment and possibly a longer wait to fill key positions. That's definitely something employers will need to prepare for, especially those in sectors like hospitality, agriculture, and construction, which rely on temporary labor. Additionally, for employers in the tech or healthcare sectors, where specialized skills are needed, they might still be able to bring in foreign workers, but they'll have to be more strategic about it. The new rules are going to make it a bit harder to hire workers from overseas. So employers may need to rethink their hiring practices and be more proactive about attracting and retaining local talent. The silver lining here is that employers will have access to a larger pool of Canadian workers who are trained and qualified for those roles, but it will still be a challenge in sectors where local workers are scarce. Balancing immigration and economic growth. Okay, so let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The Canadian government has made it clear that it's still committed to welcoming immigrants, just not as many on a temporary basis. Right? This shift in policy is part of a broader effort to better balance immigration levels with the economic needs of the country. So while there will be fewer opportunities for temporary foreign workers, the government is still open to accepting skilled workers who want to live in Canada long term. The Canadian economy is largely driven by immigration, and many industries rely on foreign talent to stay competitive. By focusing more on long-term immigration and reducing the reliance on temporary workers, the government hopes to create a more sustainable and balanced labor market. But at the same time, it's clear that these changes will have a real impact on employers, workers, and industries that have traditionally relied on foreign labor. Looking ahead, what's next? So, what does the future look like under these new policies? Right. It's clear that Canada is moving toward a more controlled approach to immigration, one that prioritizes the long-term success of local workers while still recognizing the need for international talent. For workers, the process of obtaining a work permit might be a bit more challenging, but opportunities will still exist for those who are highly skilled or fill critical labor gaps. For employers, the shift in policy will likely require adjustments in how they recruit and retain workers. The process will likely become more competitive, but it also presents an opportunity for Canadian workers to take on roles that were once filled by temporary foreign labor. Over time, this could create a more stable and self-sufficient labor market in Canada, but the path to get there will undoubtedly be a bit bumpy. In conclusion, These changes reflect a shift in Canada's immigration policy that aims to find the right balance between supporting local talent and still maintaining a strong, competitive workforce. It's a delicate balance, but it's clear that the Canadian government is taking a thoughtful approach to ensure long-term economic sustainability while addressing labor shortages in key sectors. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years. What do you think about these changes? Are they fair? Do you think they'll help or hurt Canada's economy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Thanks for watching our video. Please hit the button and subscribe the channel.